Hey guys, Lex here, back for some more of The Great Ace Attorney. Last time, we got to meet our client, Natsume Soseki, and now we're here to visit Sherlock Sholmes. 19th of February, 12:53 p.m., Sholmes' suite. This is where the great detective makes his living. Feels surreal to be here somehow. Is it as described in the stories, Mrs. Sato? Susato-san?
Many famous cases have been solved here in this very room.
Oh, I suppose they must have been, yes. I've never read the story, so it's hard to get quite as excited about it as she seems to be.
The detective chases the villain relentlessly as he disappears into the fog down an unlit London street. Oh, the thrill of it, the romanticism. Can't you feel your heart thumping in your chest? Can't you, Mr. Naruto?
Oh, I suppose I can, yes.
So if you don't mind, I'll just stand here and soak up the atmosphere for a while longer. Please don't mind me.
She's obsessed. Well, looks like our detective friend isn't home at the present. Excuse me, is anyone home?
Oh, do we have a visitor? Hello, is it a big new case for Mr. Sholmes?
Hello? Wait. Aren't you...
Oh, how rude of me. I'll go make some tea at once.
I'm sure it's the same girl. Mrs. Sato, did you see the girl who was just there?
Oh yes, isn't it truly extraordinary? To think that the King of Bohemia came to this very room to ask Mr. Sholmes to take on his case.
The King of Borwaria?
King Wilhelm Gottfried Sigismund von Ornstein, of course.
Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Forget the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes for a moment and look over there.
The tea's brewed, and I have a freshly baked cake as well. It's you.
I knew it. Susato recognizes her too.
There you are. And taking that with you as well. I was looking forward to the trial run of my experimental smoke grenade launcher. Oh, good day to you. I'm, well, the inventor, I suppose, of that machine.
It's the girl who turned up at the end of McGildett's trial in the defense chamber and killed my voice.
I've never met a lawyer from the Far East before. Poor you, having to get straight to work when you're only just arrived in London.
Oh yes, it was challenging.
Well, try this tea. It's my special blend, you know.
Oh, thank you. Is tea supposed to look the color?
Oh my, what a fragrant yet mellow flavor. Hooray! It's a winner! I've tried blending different leaves, designed to alleviate fatigue, you see. You must be exhausted after your long voyage here, and you have another ticklish trial tomorrow. Oh, and you're to defend the Japanese man. I do wish you lots of luck!
Mr. Sholmes tell you about us by any chance?
Oh, you know Hurley, do you?
Early? Mr. Sholmes to you, Shirley?
Mr. Sholmes was a fellow passenger on the boat that brought us to Great Britain, you see. Was he really? I had no idea. I'm afraid Mr. Hurley's out on an errand today, even though he just returned from overseas.
Wait a minute. I met this girl for the first time ever yesterday, after the trial, and only briefly at that. How does she know so much about us? Did she deduce all those things, do you think?
And perhaps more to the point, why is she here in Mr. Sholmes' suite? Oh, silly me! I haven't introduced myself, have I? It's a great pleasure to meet both of you. My name is Iris Wilson. I live here together with Hurley.
Ah, Iris, is it? What a lovely name.
What?
What's the matter?
No, wait. This can't be. Did you say that your name is Wilson?
What's the matter, Sasato-san? Why is she so flustered all of a sudden?
Yes, that's right. And what are your names?
Oh, I'm Ryunosuke Naruto, a lawyer from Japan.
Sorry. I'm Mr. Naruto's judicial assistant, Sasato Mikatoba. It's wonderful to meet you. Lovely, Susie and Runo. Got it.
Susie. Oh, Sasato and Ryunosuke.
Susie?
Bruno? There's more to this girl than meets the eye. I have so many questions for her. I don't know where to start.
Yes, and so do I.
Oh, jeez. I wanna examine to rest my voice.
What? There's so much.
What on earth is that big lump over there?
Ah, that fascinating thing is called a typewriter. It's a machine that allows you to write on paper without needing a pen. Wizardly quickly, too.
Oh, that sounds like it could be very useful for someone like me with terrible handwriting. That charming little white shelf and full of charming little bottles, too.
Oh yes, but don't touch any of those. They might explode.
Explode!
Are they exotic chemicals? Do you use them for exciting experiments? Yes, indeed. As Hurley always says, chemistry is an explosive science.
Sorry?
I agree. A single discovery could trigger an explosion of innovation all around the world.
Or perhaps he just meant it literally. Either way, mental note, do not touch any bottle that belongs to Iris. A beautiful English tea set, and so neatly arranged.
It's a favorite pastime of mine, a cup of herbal tea in the afternoon. Tea made of herbs. That's right, I grow all sorts of herbs in the garden so I can experiment with different blends. One moment, don't go away. I'll brew a pot of special blend I came up with earlier today.
She looks delighted. I only hope it's safe to drink.
Ah, that's my blackboard where I note down ideas.
Oh, interesting. Let's see. Black Peter. What does that mean? Dynamite?
Don't you want to hear what Iris has to say, Mr. Nerd?
I'll come back to the blackboard later.
A mystery shoe, a curious hammer, some mysterious dancing men, a bust of Napoleon. Ah, what an entrancing collection.
This is the first time in my life I've seen a lonely shoe displayed as an ornament.
Oh, those are all mementos that Hurley has collected from his past cases.
Really? Even the bust?
Yes, that's right. When the mood takes him, he likes to throw it on the floor and smash it to dust.
The poor defenseless emperor, Mr. Sholmes, destroys it.
Yes, and then buys a new one.
You make it sound like he has the temperament of an insane sculptor.
Ah, how entrancingly bohemian of him.
Sure, I would understand these references if I knew more about Sherlock stuff. It looks like that huge metal chest is being used as a table for tea and coffee. It seems very sturdy with an equally sturdy lock.
Mr. Naruto, you mustn't go around opening things. I always have to keep an eye on you, don't I? You're very mischievous.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Oh, this chest contains some of my most valuable things.
And that smile tells me you're not going to give us any clue about what they are. I do like this fireplace. It's one of the best things I've seen since I arrived in the country, in fact. Lingering beside the fire and watching the flames flicker and dance in the grate. Ah, It's so relaxing.
We can't relax. Not when there's so many interesting things on the mantelpiece. Oh, just as it was described in the stories.
Is it?
Yes, exactly. Inside that Persian slipper, for example, are my chocolates for 11 sis. And transfixed by that large jackknife is my shopping list for the market. Oh, it's not quite how I remember it being described in the Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes.
Poor Sasada-san, she looks crushed. What's this? Why? Why are there bullet holes in the wall up there? Was Mr. Sholmes trying to shoot a pestery fly or something?
Mr. Sholmes would never do something so reckless.
No?
Those are letters V-R, standing for Victoria Regina. It's Latin for Queen Victoria.
So you mean he shot the queen into the wall?
In a moment of boredom, Mr. Sholmes adorned the wall with a patriotic sign, that's all. As pistol practice.
Right, that makes perfect sense now.
It's exactly as described in the stories. Oh, this is delightful.
I'm not sure the real explanation is any less reckless than shooting a fly personally.
It's patriotic, Mr. Naruto. Patriotic!
There's all sorts on these shelves. Chemistry apparatus, books, papers, and a lot of things I've never seen before. It's all heaped up so high, I can't help feeling the whole lot is going to topple at any moment.
I keep telling Hurley not to cram so much on those shelves.
Good advice.
He wanted to look something up in one of those books a while ago. But it was so tightly wedged in he couldn't get it out. So he went and bought a new copy instead. And he put it back on the pile.
Ah, I've seen pictures of Western musical instruments like this. It's called a violin, isn't it?
Of course it is. Mr. Sholmes is renowned for his violin playing.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. It's often explained in the stories. It's inspirational, Mr. Naruto. Inspirational. I immediately started playing the koto, which was the closest Japanese stringed instrument I could find.
What a shame you couldn't bring it with you to London.
Oh, yes, well... Papa was beaming when I asked him if he would buy me one. But after a while, he asked if I would only practice when he was out of the house. So, now it's merely an ornament in my room.
That must have been an awkward conversation. Second-rate strings. Achievement. What on earth is this huge over-the-top machine?
That's the great analysoscope. It can analyze anything, really. Anything at all. That's absolutely incredible. It's one of Hurley's inventions. It took him a whole year. He said it was to help him with his investigations. What sort of things has he analyzed with it? Do you know? Well, actually, he hasn't used it for anything yet.
Oh. Why not?
Apparently, on the evening he finally completed it, it suddenly occurred to him. I don't actually have anything I need to analyze. Oh dear. How about you, Runo? Do you have anything you'd like to analyze?
The only thing that springs to mind is this machine itself. I think I got everything. It was you that we ran into yesterday, wasn't it? At the Old Bailey?
Yes, that's right. You were ever so helpful. Thank you so much. Oh no, not at all. I'm sorry we couldn't have been more welcoming.
Though, at the time, we did have a rather large gun pointed at us. Yep, that's it.
Like this?
Yep. Ugh.
Ah, thinking back now, you left with Miss Lestrade in tow, didn't you?
Oh yes, that awkward witness, Gina Lestrade.
Oh, Ginny? Yeah, she's a professional pickpocket.
So we found out.
It was very naughty of her to pinch my invention like that.
Are you referring to that trial-disrupting gun-like contraption?
Exactly! So I followed her, you see, to get it back. Perhaps I should think about fitting a self-destruct mechanism in my inventions.
That's a good idea. This girl's dangerous. Something I would do.
Anyway, I brought Ginny back here after that, so she could apologize to my trusty technician.
Sorry, your technician?
Hurley, of course, silly. Hurley? Yes, Sherlock Sholmes. We live here together.
I had no idea the great detective had such an interesting young daughter.
Daughter? Not likely.
What?
I wouldn't call him Hurley if he was my father, would I? Well then, what is your relationship with Mr. Sholmes? Well, I expect you've found out that lodgings of any kind in London are very expensive. So the solution is to share the cost with a partner, or roommate.
Your roommates?
I hope you don't mind me asking, Iris, but how old are you? 10 at last this year.
Well, what if your mother and father?
Oh no, they're not around.
Oh, I see. I wonder what that story is there.
Oh yes, there's something I must ask you. Of course. Go ahead, Susie. I'm a very great fan of the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes and... Oh, you have a copy of Rand's magazine? Yes, I read every issue. It's delivered all the way to Japan on a ship. Oh, this is so exciting! My stories are being read on the other side of the world.
My stories?
That's right. Early is always solving such amazing cases, you see, and he tells me all about them. They really are quite fascinating. It would be such a shame if I was the only one who ever heard them, don't you think? Goodness! Last night he was telling me about a new case he just solved on a steamship traveling from a faraway land. So I was just in the middle of typing up the manuscript for the next issue before you came. So, you are the author? Yes, I'll let you in on a secret if you like. I'm going to call this latest adventure a Speckled Band.
A speckled band? It's certainly very familiar.
Of course, I always change one or two details in the case stories here and there. This time I had the idea of making a venomous snake be the cause of all the trouble.
Oh, that was Mr. Sholmes' first thought as well, actually.
Yes, of course I know that the snake might not be a credible fit for the facts of the case, actually, but with a story, some poetic license is justified to make it more thrilling, I think, don't you? Oh, so, do you mean to say, are the stories about Mr. Sholmes that are published in Rand's magazine all written by me? Yes, on my wonderful and very modern typewriter. But all the stories I've ever read are written by a doctor of medicine, Dr. John H. Wilson.
Sato-san's getting more worked up.
Ah, yes, that's me. I mean, my name really is Wilson. But what about the doctor of medicine part? That's all true, too. I am a doctor of medicine.
No, at 10 years old?
At 10 years old.
Well, it's quite incredible.
But Dr. Wilson is an English gentleman. Ah, yes. I did alter the setting slightly for the stories to be more compelling. Oh. Well, sounds a little strange, doesn't it? A great detective with a 10-year-old girl in tow?
Yeah, that'd be really weird.
I suppose it does, yes.
Poor Sasato-san. She looks like her whole world has just fallen apart. About before.
Yes, what's on your mind, Bruno? Do tell me.
How did you know that I was a lawyer? And we just arrived in London, I mean.
Yes. Oh, and that we have a difficult trial tomorrow. Did you know all that? Oh, that's what you mean? Please, tell us how you did it. Explain every detail. Of course, I'd be delighted, although there's really no mystery. Now, let's begin. Iris Wilson is proud to present her Logic and Reasoning Spectacular.
Oh,
First of all, I already knew that you were a lawyer, Ryuno. After all, I met you yesterday at the Old Bailey in the defendant's antechamber.
but you also said that we'd only just arrived in London. How did you know that?
I observed a passport and travel ticket protruding from your breast pocket,
Oh,
so I was reasonably confident that you must have only just arrived in the country. And on top of that, you accepted a case against that particular prosecutor, telling me you were unaware of London's court affairs.
the Reaper of the Bailey? I walked right into that one, didn't I?
Then I noticed a red ink stamp on the back of Susie's hand. You were given that when you visited the local prison to meet with the suspect, weren't you, earlier today? Ah! They use those names to keep a close eye on comings and goings, you see. I didn't realize. And a red stamp is only used for people visiting foreign inmates. So, that told me that even though you had only yesterday concluded the trial of Magnus McGilded, the two of you have already had a case to visit a foreign inmate at a local prison. However, neither of you was wearing a particularly sad expression on your face, so I concluded that the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or a relative. That led me to believe that you must have accepted a new case.
I see.
But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home for a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It obviously amused him. He told me he'd caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling.
A Japanese man? Well, clearly that must have been.
Mr. Natsume. No! Bruno has a fancy Japanese sword. And I think it is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me that both of you come from Japan yourselves. So I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Hurley caught. There's only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case.
Oh, it's pretty good.
There's a note on the mantelpiece that says the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley is always stabbing his notes with a knife, you know. He's silly.
I do that too.
And that's all there is to it, really. Thank you for listening. I am Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions.
Phew. Oh,
Oh. Well, was it a winner? Were my deductions correct?
they were spot on.
That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction.
You even managed to certain something of Mr. Sholmes' delivery.
Oh, well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. This is really very good news. You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris, please?
Please use Fuhurlock, because my voice is dying. Oh no. I miss Sholmes. So yesterday, Mr. Sholmes apprehended a Japanese man, you were saying?
Yes. Hurley had just arrived back in London after his sea voyage, but the police were waiting for him at the railway station to take him directly to the crime scene.
Ah, the great detective is a popular man, it seems.
Apparently a woman was stabbed on a quiet street somewhere in town. There were witnesses who had seen a short, shifty-looking, stooped man running away from the scene. A short, shifty-looking, stooped man?
Mr. Natsume, beyond any doubt. Soseki-san said he didn't see anybody else on the street at all. But it seems there were witnesses after all.
Hurley used his great deductive powers to determine the man's address. It was a lodging room very nearby. He went directly there with the police, and what did they find? A short, shifty-looking stooped man shivering in fear.
Mr. Sholmes' great deduction certainly hit the mark that time.
Of course it did. He's a great detective.
Still, that means that the incident occurred only 2 days ago. Surely tomorrow is too soon for the trial, isn't it?
Definitely. We have no time to investigate properly. Hurley says that London is rife with crime.
Oh,
Scotland Yard is doing its best, but they can't stay on top of it, apparently. Oh dear, I hadn't realized the situation was so dire. That's why they can't afford to spend too much time investigating cases and trying the criminals in court. Staff and money are both short. Crimes are usually pinned on the first suspicious person. That's terrible. I suppose it's the harsh reality of the workings of the world's greatest justice system.
I suppose it is, but in that case, I don't hold out much hope for Soseki-san. Thank you for answering so many of our questions, Iris. This has been very informative.
Oh, you're most welcome. I've had so much fun.
Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is at the moment? As you guessed, we'd like to ask him some questions about this case as well.
Well, I expect Hurley is still investigating the scene.
Of the case involving Mr. Natsume, you mean?
Yes, Mr. Natsume. Hurley said he's going to that man's lodgings. If you leave now, you could probably catch him there. Iris, do you know where the lodgings are? Well, I imagine the police are still investigating the scene of the crime themselves, aren't they? Did you happen to come across a detective by the name of Gregson when you were there?
Yes, we know the Inspector Gregson.
Oh goody, in that case. Give Grexy this from me, will you? Do that, I'm sure he'll tell you what you want to know.
What is this?
A 5-shilling piece and a postcard, it seems.
A bribe.
It reads, "Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem." Gosh, this will make the inspector helpless, will it?
Well, I thank you, Iris. We'll give it a try.
Good luck then. I'm going to return to writing my manuscript, The Speckled Band. And I'll be making more special blends of tea, so come back soon. We'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Iris. Well, Mr. Naruto, it's back to the scene of the crime.
So, somewhat dubious. Actually, I want to look it up before I toss it.
This is a 5-shilling piece, isn't it? I believe it's called a crown.
Yes, and you could train a Scotland Yard detective to do whatever you want with just a single one.
Iris must be the most powerful 10-year-old in the world.
How much is 5 shillings, by the way? What's it really worth?
Well, it's probably enough to buy all the chips the inspector could possibly eat in a whole month.
That's greasy. Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. Huh. Iris's little handwriting is adorable, isn't it?
Tell the gentleman in black what he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem.
Yes, the handwriting must be adorable, but the message is ominous. There's no room for sentiment there.
I'm sure it's simply the way you're interpreting it, Mr. Naruto. Anyway, I do hope the inspector will tell us what we need to know when he reads it.
I don't think it will just make him munch piping hot chips until steam comes out of his ears, do you?
Well, that wouldn't be an entirely terrible outcome.
So somewhat dubious that they would exert any influence over the men of Scotland Yard at all. We headed back to the scene with Iris's curious note and one of the world's heaviest silver coins in hand. Okay, looks like it was a good place to stop. I think my voice is dead, so see you guys next time. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe. See ya. Bye.